right, so we're talking about drawing organization. One of the things that helps us to organize our drawings and keep things working smoothly are something called layers. Okay, so we'll be working with layers today. You're going to want to download all of our exercises. And to get started, why don't we take a look at this one, Exercise 4B, Architectural Layers is the title of the drawing. I want you to take a close look at this drawing, and I want you to tell me, what do you see that stands out compared to your drawings? What are you noticing about the lines specifically that are different from things that you have drawn up to this point? Okay, so we'll just cruise around a little bit, and it's not a trick question. It's actually pretty obvious. And when I tell you, you'll say, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, but there are three big differences between the lines in this drawing and the lines in the drawing that you were doing up to this point. All right, so what are they? Do you see color in this drawing? So far, everything you have drawn has been white, but I see magenta, I see cyan, I see green, there's orange color, there's a uh, light red, right? There's several colors on here, and so far you haven't done anything in color. So one difference is we see that there's color on the drawing. What's another difference? Do you see how some of the lines are heavy? See, these lines here that represent the wall are very heavy, whereas the other lines, for example, the closet, shelf and pole, the kitchen counter, the tub, the sink, see, they are not as heavy, right? So we see lines that have color, like the dimensions. We see lines that have weight, like the walls. Do you see the third aspect that makes these lines different from all the other lines that you've drawn so far? Some of these lines have a pattern. Do you see this connection here between the switch and the outlet? See, this is a patterned line. If we look at it, it's got a pattern of long and short dashes with small spaces in between. And it repeats long, short, long, short, long, short, all the way down. Over here by the garage, something similar. These aren't a bunch of little tiny lines. This is one line, and a pattern's been applied to the line, so it looks like it's made up of small dashes with very small spaces between. Alright, so these are line types. So we have line color, we have line weight, and we have line types that affect the way the lines look. And that's what we're going to be talking about this week. It's one of the organizational tools that go along with layers. So, in talking about drawing organization, we're going to talk about layers. And layers, don't make it any more complicated than it has to be. Think about a bunch of clear sheets of drawing medium. And if you stack them on top of each other, well, you'd be able to see through them, right? But if you drew something on each sheet, when they were all stacked up together, they would make one picture. Okay, so when people used to draw with pens and pencils on different kinds of drafting film and mylar, the material was translucent, right? So we could see through it. And some of these films, like mylar, were completely clear, so you could put one on top of the other and have different things on different sheets, and then together it created one complete drawing. Okay, if you want to think about it a little simpler, think about it like this. Layers are like individual drawings, and on each sheet is a different element. For example, here is a map, okay? And the blue stuff on this sheet represents rivers. On the next sheet, we have buildings represented and structures. On the next sheet, we've represented trees and natural formations and greenery. And then what we have when we're done is we have everything put together. Right? So now this drawing that you're looking at, it looks like a flat drawing. I've done something a little special to my drawing though, and I'm going to show you what it is. I've actually broke it into different elements to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about here. So imagine on one sheet of paper, I had the plumbing elements that make up the sink and the toilet and the bathtub. Imagine on a separate sheet, I had the dimensions. On the next sheet, I have my doors and my windows. On the next sheet of paper, walls. On my last sheet, I've got the text. And then finally, they are different things on different sheets, but when they are all stacked up on top of each other, it creates the complete picture. Now, why would we want to do this? Well, we use layers to organize the drawing so it's easy to work with and isolate drawing elements. For example, let's say I'm the guy building the house. If I'm the guy building the house, I definitely need to know how big things are, where the walls are. But I might not need to worry about the electrical wiring. So what I can do is if I am not working with the electrical wiring, I can go in and I can turn it off. Now check it out. Those lines are not there anymore. They're not deleted. It's just I can't see them. Okay, and then let's say later on the electrician comes in. The electrician really doesn't need to see the size of the house, does he? Because the house is already built. What he needs to know is what kind of electrical apparatuses are getting connected and how. So maybe for the electrician, showing him the dimensions is not necessary. We can say, hey, you don't need to see those. And now what we've done is we've isolated just the things that apply to the electrician, right? And I can give him a printout like this, and I didn't have to delete anything or risk losing anything. I can turn things on and turn things off and make them visible or invisible as I need to keep the drawing organized. So layers become an organizational tool in that they're able to help you to display what you want to display when you want to display it. They're also an organizational tool because of the fact that we can assign color to different elements, and color is going to help you find certain things quickly. For example, all the dimensions are magenta, so it's very easy to look around and to see which things are magenta. They jump out at you. Organization also refers to the importance of things in the drawing. Things that are very important should be drawn with a heavier line. The walls on this drawing are very important. They are the item that everything else gets attached to. Right? They are the skeleton and the frame of the house, so they're important. They're drawn with heavier lines. Right? So we're organizing the importance of elements in the drawing. The patterns on technical drawings represent different things. So again, it's organization, right? We're separating and specifying things by the pattern of the line. Alright, so let's go open up a drawing. Let's open up a drawing together. It's exercise 4A called Layers. And when you open it up, you'll see a bunch of boxes. This will get us started. Okay, in this drawing, if we look on our drop-down list here, there is one layer in the drawing. Now, in my other drawing, there were lots of layers, lots of colors. But in this drawing, I set this up just like every other AutoCAD drawing initially starts. Every other AutoCAD drawing will initially start with one layer, and the layer has a name. The layer name is 0. The layer has a color. Right now the color is white on a black background. And then we have our little icons here that control whether or not you can see the things on that layer. Okay, so this is a quick selector. It lets us see how many layers in the drawing. It lets us work with those layers. But what we want to do is we want to go up a notch. All right, we want to click on the big button that says Layer Properties, and that will open a big dialog box. And we'll be working with this dialog box as we have our discussion on layers. Now, every AutoCAD drawing starts with layer 0. You've gotten to the point in the class where you're about to get a promotion. And the promotion is this: no extra money, but extra responsibility. Okay? It's pretty typical for a promotion, really. So here's the deal: from here on out, you don't want to draw on layer 0. See, layer 0 in AutoCAD has a very specific job. So if you want to know what that job is, we can talk about that later. But now just understand that you should never draw on layer 0. It's very bad practice, okay? So when we need to make our own layers, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the controls at the top of the layer dialog box. And the first one here is to make a new layer. So if you give that a click, it'll say layer 1, and it's ready to go. So what is layer 1 and why layer 1? Well, honestly, AutoCAD's just not that smart. If we keep clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking, it'll just keep making layers that have the name layer with a number, and it puts them in sequence. I'm going to delete some of these because these are just unnecessary and terrible. I really don't like drawings that are named layer 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's not a very good system to organize. So when we make a layer, we're going to give that layer a name, and the name has to mean something. If we took a look at our architectural layers drawing, we see there's a lot of layers in this drawing, and they've got names like wall and door and wall and window and text and dimensions and cabinets, right? So these mean something, and we want to do the same thing if we are making layers. Our layers should have some meaning. They should have a meaning. So we're not going to leave them numbered. We're going to actually give them names. And here's our first name, red. Now, this is just a name. This did not change the color. I can name it Bob. Okay, you can name it anything you want, but the name is just a title. Okay, but what I want to do is I want to click inside the little box here where the colors are set, and I want you to see that we can assign color to the lines you're going to draw. So what are we going to do? Well, let's go to the first color on the index row. Here's index 1 through 9. Let's pick red, number 1, and hit OK. And now what we see is the color for that layer is red. There's a green check mark on layer 0. Layer 0 is current right now. A layer that's current just means that's the one it's set to draw on up here in AutoCAD. So there's a couple of ways of changing that. If you want to, you can double click down here, and now you see the green check is on the layer named red. If we look up here in our layer selector, well, now that's the current layer. And what will happen is anything I draw from here on out will be with that red color. Okay, so the name of the game was add color, and I'd like you to do the same thing, please. Okay, make a layer, call it red, and then just do a little doodling inside the box. Now you're going to see that the box is on layer 0, and I can tell that because when I select the box up here in the layer selector box, it's telling me that that's layer 0. Whereas if I pick that line, it says that's on layer red. You can change what layer an object is on by selecting it and then going to the drop down and then reassigning it to a new layer. You see how the box now that was on layer 0 is now on the layer called red. Okay, we can actually select anything we want, and we can switch it to whatever layer we want on the fly as we go. Okay, but we want everything in this first box to be on that layer red. Alright, so we'll click the layer property box again. We'll click on new. We're going to give it a new name. The new name is green. Okay, now notice what happened when I clicked on new. Because red was the current layer, it copied the color. See, if 0 was the current layer and I say new, well, it just copies the properties of the current layer. But since red was the current layer, it copied the red color, which we had assigned. But that's okay, because we can go in and we can click on the color box and we can go down to color number 3 and select it. And now we see the green layer has the color green, and I know you can't read it, so if you can't read stuff, just move your cursor to the top of the column and you can resize how wide the columns are. Okay, it doesn't really help you much if you can't read the stuff, right? And then we'll set this current, click, and in this box here, we are going to draw some stuff on that green layer. And there it is. Layer is green, the lines are green. Okay, now the box, of course, was on 0. We can switch it to green. And in fact, later on, if we decide, hey, we're going to do every other one red, well, that's fine too, because we can go in and then reassign the geometry, the drawing elements, to a different layer. Okay, but I'm going to go in here, I'm going to set everything back to the green layer, and then we will move on back to layer properties. Okay, let's make a new layer. We're going to call it Magenta. Of course, green is the current layer, so when I made the new layer, it took the color with it. Magenta is color number 6. We'll make a current, and then we'll take our box here, we'll place it on magenta, and then whatever you draw, of course, is going to be that terrible, horrible, disgusting purple color. Alright, so assigning color, no big deal really. We go into the layers and we select and set up the colors we want and assign colors by layer. We'll make one more, we'll call it cyan, and cyan is this light blue number 4. We'll make a current, and here is box number 4. Now it gets the cyan color, and then whatever you draw from here to here is going to now have cyan as its assigned color. Alright, so we're going to start adding color to our lines. And we're going to do that by using layers. So let's talk about color for a little bit. Some colors look great on a black background. If I was to make a new layer and go into the colors, I see that red, yellow, green, magenta, cyan, these all look really good on a black background. The blue, honestly, the blue's a little tough. Hard to see the blue. Well, maybe just for old people with bad eyes like me. But the blue is a little tough to see. Alright? And in fact, if we went in and changed the color to something else, like color number 40, up here, do you see what happened? See, anytime we change the color of the layer, everything on that layer immediately and automatically updates to its new color. Now the fact is, colors 1 through 9 is the index row. Most of the time these are the colors we want to work with. Okay, again, these things look good for the most part on a black background. Not really so with some of these colors out here. So there's 255 colors in the index color. This blue right here, this blue is so dark it's almost black. This magenta is so dark it's almost black. Right, so some of these colors, like color number 29 is a chocolate brown. It's kind of hard to see, isn't it, over here on this black background? So honestly, some of these colors are just goofy and unnecessary. These are the ones we're going to work with most of the time. This one here is white, and you can tell because when you click on it down here it says white. On the next row, these are the grays. So this is dark gray, lighter gray, lighter gray, lighter gray, lighter gray. This is not white, and I want you to see when you click on it how it says this is color 255. So just keep in mind that this is so light it doesn't even print out when you go to print. Okay, so if you want white, pick it from the index row and make sure that you've got white in the box. This is one way to assign colors by layer using index colors. If you click on the next tab, you'll see there's a couple of more ways of specifying color, and these are more for graphic arts. Hue, saturation, and luminosity. You can assign numbers to those three values and specify a color, right? And then how bright do we want it, right? So by working with the sliders there, you have HSL. RGB is red, green, blue. Same idea. How much red does the color have? How much blue does the color have? How much green does the color have? And then that's another way of assigning color. Okay, so index colors, RGB, and HSL. This is really overkill for technical drawing most of the time. Okay. If you want to go totally off the deep end though, here it is. Ready? Color books. So have you ever been down the Home Depot and seen this wall of color? Anytime you go into a store with paints, right? They have color chips, and this is one color, this is the next color, the next shade, this is the next shade or tint of that color. If you look at yellow, there's like 4,000 different yellows you can pick from, 2,000 different magentas, 8,000 different blues. Fact is, I'm a male, and I just don't have enough color receptors, I guess, like the rest of the gender. So if you want to go great guns, though, if you are interested in interior design, interior decorating, heavy into art, well, then you'd want to go to a color book. And what we have, I don't know, 3 or 4 billion different colors to pick from, right? So, coded colors, CMYK. Here are the Pantone colors. And if we go down our list here, you'll see that these are all different colors, supposedly. I just can't see it. They are all different colors, all slightly different, and there is a bazillion of these things. So if you were working with someone that was big into color, or you had to do something, and it was very important which shade of periwinkle we're trying to find here, you can get the exact Pantone colors using color books. Again, though, kind of overkill for what we're going to be doing probably, and not very likely we're going to need to bust into the Pantone books for a layer color. Okay, but I want you to see them. So the big question becomes, why color? Why color? Why are we going to work with color when blueprints are typically printed in black and white? That's right, I don't see any colors on here. So what's the need for all these fancy colors when everything we're going to do 99% of the time gets printed out anyway with black and white? Why all the color? What's the purpose? So the purpose isn't for printing. We're not really going to print this using these colors. If someone handed me a drawing with magenta dimensions, I'd start really wondering about the person and what they knew about AutoCAD and technical drawing. Color is for you. Color is for the technician. Color helps you to find things, right? So if I say, hey, where are all the plumbing things in the drawing? Well, plumbing items, bath items, all have a certain color. And if I say, hey, where's all the electrical stuff? Well, all the electrical stuff's that light orange, right? You see, it stands out when it's all in one color. The dimensions are all magenta. They stand out. You can find dimensions quickly and easily in your drawing. Okay, now if this was all just black and white, check it out. This is the same drawing. This is a much harder drawing to read. It's a much harder drawing for you to find things when everything is the same color, right? And for us, it wouldn't be printing out white on black, it'd be printing out black on white, like this, right? A little harder to find all the electrical elements now. A little harder to find those dimensions that are inside the building, and you got to go searching now instead of having them just pop out of the screen at you because they were a different color that stood out. Okay, so again, color is not for printing purposes usually. Color is for the CAD technician. So you can distinguish and separate one item from another while you're working on them. Now, we talked about the light bulb, right? The light bulb controls visibility. So if we're in the layer manager or the layer manager drop down here and we click on the light bulb, what happens? Well, the elements go away, right? We don't see those elements anymore. That doesn't mean they're deleted, it just means they are temporarily turned off. There go my windows, there go my doors, there goes my text, right? And I can work on certain things at certain times. Right? And if the electrical is in my way and I don't really need to see it, well, I just turn it off. So the light bulb controls visibility. And did you see what just happened there? The current layer, the layer that we're set to draw on right now, is electrical wiring, and I turned it off. And AutoCAD just gave me a little slap in the face and said, "Hey dummy, are you sure you want to do that?" So you can turn off the current layer. The reason it's giving you the little warning is because if the current layer is turned off, you might try drawing stuff and then say, "Wow, man, what is wrong with this program? AutoCAD seems to be broken. What's going on?" So what is going on? Well, you drew a bunch of stuff, but you can't see it, right? If I turn that on, see where all of my lines are now? Yeah, so AutoCAD will give you a little prompt to remind you that, hey, maybe you really don't want to do this when you start turning off the current layer, but you can if you needed to or wanted to. Alright, so the light bulb is visibility control, on and off, print with or without certain elements, or just have certain elements on the screen at one time. Now, next to the light bulb, there's a little sun. And if we find something like the dimensions and we hit the sun, it looks like the same thing happens. It looks like they turned off. And you might wonder, well, why do we have a tool that freezes and thaws the elements of the drawing when I have a light bulb that turns things on and turns things off and seems to do the same thing? So if you go to the exercise called freeze, we'll see how this works and what the difference is. There's a red circle and a white circle, and in the drawing I have two layers. Layer 1 is the white, layer 2 is the red. I'd like you to open the drawing and then just double click on your wheel mouse, and that will zoom to the extents of the drawing. Basically it fills up your screen with whatever you drew. Okay, so if I'm all the way out here and I double click on the wheel, click, it will fill up the screen with the elements I drew. Okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to turn off the red circle and I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to double click the wheel. And notice what happened. It drew this circle, positioned it here like it did before. Why did it leave all this blank space out here? I mean, there's only one thing on the screen, right? So the truth is AutoCAD still sees the other circle. When you turn off the light bulb, you turn off the visibility, you don't see it, but AutoCAD does. Okay. Well, what are we going to do with the sun then? Well, the sun will freeze those geometric elements. So I'm going to zoom all the way out and then double click the wheel, click. Whoa, so look how this is different now. It didn't stick the circle in the left corner of the screen and leave room for the red circle on the right that we don't see. See, it's totally forgotten about the red circle. So the difference between freeze and thaw and on and off for visibility is that when objects are turned off with the light bulb, AutoCAD's still thinking about them, right? Now it's thinking about that circle that it knows is here. But when objects are frozen, not only do they disappear from AutoCAD's working memory, basically. Okay, so that's why we have one icon next to another, and they appear to do the same thing. The idea of freezing layers, this used to be when computers didn't have a lot of RAM. When computers did have a lot of RAM and you had 10 or 12,000 circles, lines, and pieces of text on a piece of paper for a drawing, you would freeze the stuff you didn't need, and it would free up some memory so the computer would run faster. Most computers today have, tons of memory, and it's not a big deal, but the tool is still in there, and you might work with very complex drawings at some point, and freezing the stuff you're not using saves you some system resources. If your computer at home is not that great and you're working on an AutoCAD drawing, freeze the layers you're not using instead of turning them off, and you'll see some better performance, I'm sure. Alright, so here we are in our drawing, and we see that on-off works with everything that we did. Red is off, red is on, cyan on and off, green on and off, magenta on and off, and then new layer. Gosh, new layer, what a weak name, right? So you can actually go to the layer manager and click on new layer and click soft, and that'll let you change the name. So instead of new layer, how about I don't know, mauve. I don't know what color it is, but it's kind of purplish, right? It's actually Pantone 10229C. Maybe that's a better name for it. Okay, so now that name means something. Tells me what the color is. All right, so color. We've mastered color, I'm pretty sure. Let's go to the next part of the layer manager then. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to set the color back to index color for white, color 7. This time though, for a name, we're going to give it a slightly different name. We're not going to call it layer 1. We're going to call it thick. Thick. Yeah, so we're not going to change the color or worry about color right now. What we're going to do is we're going to change the line weight. So how heavy is that line? So if you click where it says default, default just means what AutoCAD comes set for normally and naturally. Default is fine. I'm going to change it though. I'm going to bang it up, and I'm going to make it thick. I'm going to go to 1 millimeter. Okay, that's going to give me a really heavy line. Okay, so let's set a current. Let's close the manager. Let's take our rectangle and let's put it on the layer called thick. Well, that doesn't look much thicker, does it? Does that look thicker to you? Doesn't look thicker to me. So now, for this idea of line weight to work, we've got to do two things. We've got to actually set the line weight in the layer, but we also have to go down here and turn on the button that displays line weight display. And when that's turned on, hey, look at that. Big heavy lines now, right? So there it is. Heavy lines for important things that we want to make stand out. All right. Now, thick is a terrible name, let's be honest. So for me, if I want to make this memorable, I'll say it's 1 millimeter. That's a good name for that line because that's how thick it is, and that means something. I'll click on new layer. You see how I copied the line weight this time? I'll call it 0.5 millimeters, half a millimeter. And I'll go to the line weight and I'll find 0.50. Don't mind the extra zeros. Okay, now I have a line that's half a millimeter wide. And we'll go here and we'll set that for 0.5 millimeter, and we do see that it's got slightly reduced line weight. Now 1 millimeter is still the current, so I will switch the current layer to the 0.5 millimeter, and we'll do a little bit of drawing to draw some of these lines and circles and arcs with that slightly heavier weight than default. Okay, so the fact is there are a lot of different line weights in AutoCAD. If we take a look on the line weight selector, it goes from the default, which is pretty thin, to 5/100ths of a millimeter, up to 2.11 millimeters, which is a pretty fat line. And if we had to make lines fatter than that, we could, but these are typical weights for drawing elements on technical drawings. There's also a layer weight for 0, and 0 is super, 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 super thin. Okay, so sometimes we might set our line weight to 0. 0 doesn't mean nothing here. It means something, but hardly anything. All right, so why don't you find 1.4. Right, let's give it the name 1.4 millimeters. So when we go looking, we'll remember what that layer actually is set for and what it does. 1.4. And then we'll take our box and put it on 1.4. And then we're going to draw something. Bam, with that heavy 1.4. Okay, and for our last one, let's do this. Let's make a new layer. Let's call it 2.11 color. So we can select the line weight. I'll set it for the heaviest line weight. Pick a color, any color, okay? Any one you want, even one of these pukey ones if you want to use it. Doesn't really matter to me too much. Find something you like. There we go, that's very tropical looking, color 140. Right, we'll make that the current layer. And now we see that we can combine both elements, not just heavy line weight, but also color. Alright, so first we did color at default weight, and now we're working with line weight, different weights, varying weights, and of course we can combine both of those with line weight and color. Let's talk about our last element here. We'll go to our layer properties. Let's go to 0 and set that current. And we'll make a new layer. And we will call the layer hidden. Hidden, kind of a funny name, huh? So I'm not going to change the color. I'm not going to change the line weight. What I'm going to change this time is something called line type. See, right now all these lines are continuous lines. It means they are unbroken solid lines. Well, if we go to the continuous and give it a click, we'll see that AutoCAD has a couple of different kinds of lines. It's got continuous loaded in my drawing here. It also has something called dashed 2 loaded, and that shows you the pattern. Something called phantom 2 is loaded in mine. Now you might have the same, or you might have just continuous. Regardless, we're going to load some new line types, because the one I'm looking for is not here. The one I'm looking for is called hidden. So I'll go to load, and a file opens up with all the different line types that AutoCAD has. So they're alphabetical. You can find hidden and say OK. And then over here, make sure you select hidden because it was set for continuous, and say OK. And now here's what we should see. The name of the layer is hidden. The line type is hidden. And if I make this the current layer, what I should see is when I start drawing stuff, the things I draw will be drawn with that dashed broken line. See, if we're drawing with a pencil, right, we'd have to draw it and then go back in and erase little tiny segments of it, or draw one little segment at a time. Well, in AutoCAD, this isn't a bunch of little segments. This is one continuous circle. It just looks like it's got segments. If I click on my rectangle here and I go apply that to hidden, same deal, right? This is a polyline. Well, look, that's a single edge. If you just drew lines, you'll see that the line has a start point and an end point and a midpoint, but each little segment doesn't. They're all part of the same line. And as the line gets smaller, well, the number of instances in the pattern will vary. As the line gets longer, the number of dashes will also vary. Okay, so this was hidden. Let's go in here and raise some heck, huh? Okay, how about we find one that says center? We'll be working with this one. Center. I don't see it on my list of loaded lines, so I will go load and CE, center. There it is. Center is long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short. That's the pattern. So we'll set it to the pattern we want. We make sure that the layer for center lines has the center line type. Make current. And then as you start drawing, we should see that center line pattern. Right? Long, short, long, short, long. And it'd look better, or you'd see the pattern more easily on a larger line. There it is. Okay, so we add a little bit of line work inside our box. We'll take our box, we'll put it on the center line layer, and that is a center line pattern. We'll load one more up. This time, fence, fence. I'm not going to change the line weight, not going to change the color, but I will go loading and looking for the fence line. Now there's two kinds of fence lines in AutoCAD. One has circles, one has squares. You pick the one that you like, okay? And we'll make it current. And what is a fence line? Well, imagine you're drawing some property and your property's got a fence and you want to show that this is a fence and not the driveway or the road or the edge of the house. So it's got a little square built into the line. Those aren't different drawing elements, it's just the pattern that the line draws as. Alright, so that's a fence line, and if you drew circles, well, they would be drawn with fence line. Here we have a little riding circle, right, if you're into horseback riding. Alright, we'll load up another one, make a new one. We call this one gas. This is hilarious, gas, everyone giggles. Alright, gas, so load and then GAS, gas. It's a gas line, so if I'm drawing utility lines, water, gas, sewer, I might use a line that doesn't leave any question about what does the line represent. So here I'll say, hey, put that on the gas layer, and do you see what we're getting here? It is a line that has the word gas at regular intervals along it. And the longer the line, the more frequently we see gas. The shorter the line, the less frequent. Make one more layer, we'll call it batting. Like batting. This is not the kind of batting that you do with the baseball though. Batting is talking about insulation. Bats of insulation, the insulation in the walls of your house. So if you go down and find batting and assign it, batting layer, make continuous, or I'm sorry, make current. What does batting look like? Batting's freaky. So batting is supposed to be insulation in a wall or a ceiling or a floor. Back in the old days, you had to draw this by hand and make all these pretty little curves, right? So now AutoCAD does it all for you. So it still has a start point, it still has an end point, and a midpoint. It's just that now it adds that curvy pattern to the line while it's drawing. Okay, and if you want to make a couple of more layers, go for it. Make something called My Layer. My Layer, right? And assign whatever color you want, assign whatever line type you want, assign whatever line weight you want, and just see what it looks like. Okay, we're just experimenting, we're just playing around, just getting a feel for things. And then when you're done, make it current and throw some elements on there. My Layer, There we go. Phantom lines. Okay, bam, bam. Go here. So, the fact is, lines, the pattern of a line, has meaning. And on technical drawings, different kinds of lines mean different things. So, the pattern's kind of an important deal. Okay, when you are making layers and looking at those line types, a couple things to keep in mind when you're loading them up. These ones over here say ACAD ISO. ACAD ISO. These are patterns that are set up for metric drawings when you're drawing in millimeters, okay? So this will not work since we're drawing in feet and inches generally. Okay, so just avoid the ACAD ISO patterns and work from batting down to your final choice there. Zigzag is nice. Tracks is nice, right? Railroad tracks. So find something that works for you. On the last couple, play around with them and hit save when you're done. We're going to want to refer back to this later on. Okay, but we've made layers with color and with line weight and with patterns or line types. If we look at our architectural drawing, we see all three of those things, right? Different elements have been separated out by using color. Different things have patterns depending on what their function is. These are the connections between the switches and the lights. That tells the electrician which switch controls which light. The garage door here is drawn with a dashed line. On an architectural drawing, that means it's up in the air in its open position. Right, and then finally, things that are important need to be made stand out. So the walls are important. They are drawn with heavier line weight. They are weightier. Haha, get it? So this is our discussion on working with layers and using the layer property manager and the layer property manager drop down to switch between layers, change elements of layers, and get comfortable with this idea that we can start organizing our drawings by using layers.